12th, 2016. Welcome everybody, and special welcome to our special guest in the audience, Mr. Melvin Musel, father of Commissioner Mayor Sean Musel. Welcome, sir. All the way from Goodland. I heard it was 30-some degrees there this morning. Not good. At any rate, welcome, and I'll talk to you after the meeting, and you can critique your son's performance here tonight. First item on our agenda is the approval of the minutes, or consider approving them for the meeting held on April 28th. Does any commissioner have any comments or corrections on those? If not, we will consider them accepted as written and move on to the next item, which is citizens' comments. At this time, any member of the audience that would like to address the commission on a non-agenda item, please step forward. State your name for the record. Seeing none, we will move on. Item number 4 is the consent agenda. We have, commissioners, we have a cereal malt beverage license application for Downtown Hayes Development, and I've made an appointment to the Convention Visitors Board. That is on the consent agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve that consent agenda as you presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for approval of the consent agenda. All those in favor of that motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Unfinished business, I believe we have none. Next is new business, and we have our economic development policy revisions. I want to consider approval of those, and at this time I will call on the city manager.
The commission has reviewed and asked for some changes to the economic development policy. This policy has been discussed at a couple work sessions. It has been vetted through the Ellis County Coalition for Economic Development Board for input. And what is presented to you tonight is the culmination of that process. I'm not going to go through every change, but you do have a red line copy in front of you. I just want to hit some of the highlights and then emphasize some of the changes that were requested after the work session last week. On the first page, there's just some language added, and this is added actually throughout the document, that emphasizes the importance of sales tax to our economy. With the general fund being funded by a sales tax, from an economic development standpoint, sales tax generating endeavors are very important to us. Number 2, statement of process. This is a new section, and this was a section that was requested by the governing body after the NWK investments request for economic incentives. The statement of process put in place requires anybody wanting to utilize the policy to first meet with the or Ellis County Coalition for Economic Development. They will work with the director. If necessary, they will enter into a funding agreement with bond counsel and prepare a term sheet. After that, the potential applicant can come in front of the city commission to pitch their idea and get feedback before they do a formal application. And this is something the commission's talked about a couple of times, but for the people that may not be familiar with this process, certain types of requests, application requests, this also require a certain type of legal petition. So a CID there has to be a legally filed petition, and then that starts the statutory clock where you guys have to take action within a certain amount of time frame. So there is the possibility that an applicant may want to come forward and pitch a concept, get feedback, and then take that feedback and incorporate it into a formal application. So this formalizes that process. So what the commission hears is not going to be materially different from what comes forward then. There is one change to page 1 based off of last week's meeting, and that is that the first preface to the sentence of with exception of the job bounty applications, that's been removed. And then if you move forward, page 4, retail development. There are 2 substantive changes on this page, actually 3. One, the sales tax provision for eligibility for TIF has been removed. Right now, property taxes and sales taxes are eligible for requests to utilize for TIFs. The sales tax portion has been removed. So if somebody wanted to implement a tax increment financing district, only property tax increment would be able to be used for that. The requirements for retail development of 50,000 square foot, 10 million in retail and annual sales, and 25 employees has been removed. And then there are a little more detailed application requirements. This helps us make a better evaluation of the business plan, and not only but the business plan, but the effect on utilities and other side improvements there. If you move forward, page 15, the job bounty program has been struck from the document. The last utilization of that was in 2011, and it was very sporadically used before that. So after discussion by the governing body last week, that's been removed. And then on page 17, there is one change as a result from last week, and that is under section 16, subsection 1, last sentence has been struck. Potential applications can obtain a per acre cost to provide general services. Staff suggested that sentence be removed. And there is an addition, if asking for any financial incentives such as TIF, TDD, tax abatements, the applicant shall be required to provide a detailed monetary breakdown of the programs being requested. What this means is we want the applicant to have an understanding of how much revenue they're going to generate with these programs, what's going to be the cost of the city in taxes given up, what's going to be the financial impact on both sides. That has to fit somehow into their business plan. So we can make an overall determination on whether the incentives are necessary or not. So we think this language strengthens what Aaron and I are going to get ahead of time from an applicant. There has to be a need for some of this stuff, and we think this helps spell out the need. And that is the substantive changes. I do have one change, last page, just since we went over it last week as well. On the very last page, the commission will not entertain requests for incentives outside of what is allowed by or in accordance with this policy. That means if somebody wants to come in and do something that's not allowed by the policy, we're not going to throw that in front of you. If they want to come in and ask for you to modify the policy to allow something, then they have to first do that first. We don't want to put you in an uncomfortable position of entertaining a request that's completely outside of your policy. And we think the policy is pretty comprehensive. It should cover pretty much anybody that wants to come forward.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve the revisions to the economic development policy. As submitted. Sorry.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Schwaller, seconded by Commissioner Jones to approve the economic development revision. Does anybody have any questions or comments? We had a really good discussion on it last week and kind of hammered out. And I know there's one section with the providing some of the detailed monetary thing. I know that was a request.
Thank you.
Commissioner Schwaller's.
I will say that it's May because you know that the trees are flowering and the gardens are getting planted, and we revisit the economic development policy. It's something we do annually, whether we need to or not. But these changes, I have to say, are the best changes we've made in a long time. They make sense. They give more power to the coalition to assist us, which is the reason the coalition was created, to assist in economic development. It makes it more specific. I also like the language, the change to the cost-benefit analysis. So I appreciate all the work that everyone put into this.
I like it. I think it makes us seem more business-friendly to be able to work with developers, and hopefully it makes it easier to come to Hayes. And, my goal would be not to give any benefits, but I don't think that's possibility anymore. So, but I'd like to, I know we've all heard that there's people wanting to come, out there by Walmart and Home Depot where we have infrastructure. And it sure would be nice to see somebody breaking ground out there and, bring some new business to maybe get our sales tax revenues turned around.
I think 25, 30 years ago, the economic development goals were to go for some heavy hitters, big employers, and so I think that's where that language came from, was to set up incentives for somebody and guaranteed 100, 200, 300, 400 employees. And I think, I've seen in recent years, we're looking more at the quality companies coming here with maybe 10 or 20 employees. Those add a lot of benefit. And so I think striking that language at the beginning of this on the square footage and $10 million thing opens up those possibilities where some incentives are available for those. If there's no further comments, I'll call for the vote. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Motion carries 5-0 for the revision of the economic development policy. Next item is a report of the city manager.
I have nothing to report.
Mr. Jones?
I have nothing. Briefly, we are in a recession. We've seen it here locally. We've seen it in northwest Kansas. We're very lucky, though, in Ellis County that we have an economy that's much different than it was the last time we went through this malaise where we have low oil prices, low commodity prices, so both ag and oil and manufacturing were hit. And we're lucky because we have regional players. We have a regional medical center, regional center for education, and we are a regional trade and retail center. But this weekend is about our education, and we'll have several thousand students graduate from the university, and then in China we'll have more students graduate in the next couple weeks. And the great thing for us is that even in these downtimes, Fort Hays State is still growing and doing quite well. We have 2,327 more students on campus and here than we had in 2010. University employs over 2,900 people. The wage and salary impact of the university is $126 million. The total economic impact of the university, including not only the salaries and wages, but of the students, is $242 million. And without the university, this county would look a lot different. This whole region would look much different. We've been lucky to have great leadership, very strong presidents that run the university efficiently and well, and continue to reach out to other areas, both Colorado and Texas and foreign countries, to continue to grow the university, and undertaking a major construction program on campus to improve infrastructure, the first time really since the post-World War II era. Now, in full disclosure, I do work there, but that's not why I'm saying this. It's just that we know that in the next 2 weeks, we'll find out how much more funding has been cut from the university. University's already lost $1 million this year in state funding, and it will probably lose more, there's no doubt about it. But when will it come and how much will it be? Those are the questions that will have an impact on this community and those jobs that I mentioned there. Because that university takes that $1 million and it creates a whole bunch of jobs that then leads to help students that create more jobs. So let's congratulate everyone that graduates from Fort Hays State University this weekend, keep them in our thoughts, but also let's keep the university in our thoughts as well. Thank you.
Commissioner Meyer?
Nothing.
I'd also like to congratulate all the high school seniors and college graduates. I've actually got a couple employees that I'll be losing soon that have been with me for about 3 years, and they've been some really good employees. And last week we had a presentation from some really good from Fort Hays State, and they're all over the state of Kansas, Colorado, and it just shows you what our town is made of. And it's last week was a really good presentation from those students, and it's good to have those guys in our community.
Thank you. I have a couple items. One being, for those of you watching on television, earlier this evening I presented a proclamation declaring May 15th through May 21st as National Public Works Week here in the city of Hays. And with that, I wanted to also commend all our public works employees and the great job they do keeping this city going and maintaining and building our infrastructure. And we have a longtime member of that department, Mr. Mark Darnell, will be retiring after 35 years, and I want to give him a special thanks for all of his efforts in performing his job and doing it very well. And then just an item for the commissioners to think about. If you recall, when Mr. Max Maximov was here after his visit to Paraguay, he pointed out that there was a street actually named Hays, Kansas in Santa Maria, Paraguay. And I've kind of thought about that a while, and so trying to identify a street and looking at something that has no addresses on it. In other words, you don't want to go in and rename something that's going to cause some duress to people having to change their letterheads and what have you. So not looking at anything really busy, just looking at something. So I would ask that we maybe have that as a work session item next
Well,
week.
it's also customary, particularly in American cities, to name streets with honorary names. For example, Avenue of the Americas in New York City is not Avenue of the Americas, and Madison Avenue doesn't exist, so we could give it an honorary name, just as, there's no Chestnut Street, but it's still the Chestnut Street District, so.
Very good point.
That's true.
So at any rate, I discussed that with the city manager and come up with some ideas, but I think it's with
Good idea, I like
We're
it.
gonna have the governor of Paraguay coming here in a short time, so I think it'd be kind of neat if we could.
Do we not have any new development areas where they haven't,
They usually plat it and.
and
Yeah,
it's already
that's
been
up
taken
to
There's
the
not a
governor.
new development on the horizon like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's up to the person platting it to do
to do the
the
name?
street name.
Gotcha.
I think you guys can change them after they've been platted.
Not while I'm here.
We could ask state to change the name of
At any
mine.
rate, thanks for the good discussion tonight. This meeting is adjourned.